Have you ever felt that unsettling sense that you were born for something greater? That quiet calling within, whispering that there's a deeper purpose to your existence. If you're watching this video, you've probably come across the idea of the chosen one, whether through books, films, or that persistent intuition that won't go away. Today, I'll share with you something we've learned the hard way along our spiritual journey. You see, for years I plunged headfirst into this path of self-discovery, searching for answers, signs, and confirmations that I was on the right track. And yes, I found many transformative insights, but I also uncovered silent pitfalls that few ever mention. These pitfalls are what we need to discuss today. Because, you see, the path of the chosen is not that romanticized life that many portray. It's a journey that demands discernment, brutal honesty with oneself, and, above all, the courage to confront truths that aren't always comfortable. This video reveals the 7 biggest dangers that can arise on the path of self-discovery, with particular emphasis on the 5th point, which contains a key revelation to help you avoid self-deception and achieve true transformation. The aim here isn't to frighten but rather to prepare you, offering essential tools so that your journey can be more authentic and aware. If you're feeling a mix of curiosity and apprehension, that's a great sign, as it shows you're ready to face some essential truths about what it really means to be a chosen one today. Being a chosen one today represents an awakening to consciousness and a commitment to the collective good. Many feel a calling towards something beyond the superficial, but it's crucial to recognize and avoid the traps of the ego, which can turn self-knowledge into self-deception. This responsibility involves a genuine commitment to oneself and the world, keeping focus on true growth rather than the illusions of the spiritual ego. Share in the comments if you relate to any of these points. And remember, those who like and comment here already show they have something special. Each interaction strengthens our community. Let's move forward together and in harmony. The 7 dangers. Danger 1. Spiritual ego. The spiritual ego is perhaps the most alluring of the dangers encountered on the path of the chosen, precisely because it disguises itself as enlightenment. Imagine this: you begin your spiritual journey with the best intentions, seeking growth and self-awareness. Gradually, deep insights and transformative experiences begin to emerge, and you naturally start to change. So far, so good. The problem arises when the ego finds a new way to express itself through these spiritual achievements. Let me share something personal with you. Years ago, after some intense mystical experiences, I realized I had developed a certain subtle sense of superiority. I didn't show it openly. Of course, after all, spiritual people are humble, aren't they? Ironic smile. But inwardly, I judged those who weren't on the same level. I would use terms like low vibration or unawakened people with troubling frequency. This is the spiritual ego in its most common form. The signs are subtle, yet revealing. Have you ever caught yourself secretly feeling superior because of your spiritual practices? Using your spiritual knowledge to avoid necessary confrontations? Silently competing with other seekers? Measuring your worth by the number of mystical experiences you've had? If you identified with any of these points, take a deep breath. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. The spiritual ego is almost a rite of passage on the journey of the chosen. The trick isn't to eliminate it, which would just be another ego trap, but to recognize it and consciously integrate it. So, how can we work with this? First, through honest self-observation. Start noticing when you use your spirituality as a badge of honor. Observe when feelings like "I know more" or "I'm more evolved" arise. Don't judge, just observe. Second, cultivate genuine humility. Not that performative humility that's just another mask of the ego, but the true understanding that we're all on a journey. The true chosen one isn't someone who places themselves above others, but someone who recognizes the light within each being, regardless of the path they've chosen to follow. Speaking of recognition, there's another equally subtle danger that often walks hand in hand with the spiritual ego: spiritual bypassing. This is when we use spiritual tools not for genuine transformation, but as a sophisticated form of escape. And believe me, it's more common than you might think. You are one step away from raising your energy. Don't miss out. Access the transformative content in the first pinned comment. And continuing on the topic of the video, Danger 2, spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is like that friend who always says, everything happens for a reason when you're going through a tough time. You know when it hurts, but you smile and say, it's all light and love. Exactly. While these affirmations carry deep truths, they can become sophisticated masks to avoid the real emotional work we need to do. Let me share something I observed at a meditation retreat. A participant was dealing with a profound trauma of abandonment, but every time the topic came up, she quickly shifted to mantras and positive affirmations. It's just karma, she'd say. I need to transcend this. It seemed spiritual, it seemed elevated, but in reality, it was a way of avoiding the necessary work of processing that pain. Spiritual bypassing shows up in various subtle forms. Using meditation to escape difficult emotions rather than processing them. Attributing everything to karma to avoid personal responsibility. Ignoring practical problems in the name of detachment. Using the language of non-duality to dodge necessary conflicts. Suppressing negative emotions in pursuit of a false peace. The irony is that the more we try to escape using spiritual tools, the more these unresolved issues manifest in our lives in increasingly intense ways. It's like trying to keep a ball underwater. The harder you push, the more violently it resurfaces. The true path of the chosen one isn't about transcending our humanity but embracing it fully. It's about understanding that authentic spirituality doesn't exclude any part of the human experience, it integrates them. Your emotions, your pains, your fears, all of this is part of the journey. So how can we avoid spiritual bypassing? Start by observing your relationship with emotional discomfort. When a difficult emotion arises, what's your first impulse? Meditate to transcend it? Affirm that it's all an illusion? Or can you stay present with it? Feel its weight, its message? This is one of the reasons why many seekers end up isolating themselves. After all, it's easier to maintain high vibes when we distance ourselves from situations and people that challenge us emotionally. But this isolation, the next danger we'll discuss, brings its own set of traps. Because, paradoxically, it is often through relationships that we find our greatest opportunities for growth. Danger 3, social isolation. There's an interesting paradox on the path of the chosen one. The deeper we go into our spiritual quest, the stronger the temptation can be to isolate ourselves. After all, didn't the great spiritual masters retreat to caves and monasteries? Isn't it in silence that we find the deepest truths? Well, yes and no. And it's in this yes and no that one of the most subtle traps of our journey lies. I remember a time when I was convinced I needed to distance myself from dense energies to maintain my high frequency. Gradually, I began cutting ties with old friends, avoiding family events, and creating a spiritual cocoon around myself. It seemed so right at the time, until I realized I was confusing isolation with introspection. You see, there is a crucial difference between intentional moments of solitude and social isolation. Solitude is a conscious, temporary retreat that allows us to integrate experiences and deepen our inner connection. Isolation, on the other hand, is often a form of escape, a way of avoiding the mirror that relationships provide. True spiritual growth doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's in the dance between retreat and engagement that we find balance. It is precisely our interactions, especially the challenging ones, that offer us the greatest opportunities to practice compassion, patience, and unconditional love. How can we consider ourselves evolved if we can only maintain our peace in complete isolation? So, how do we find this balance? Start by observing your motivations. When you feel the urge to isolate, ask yourself, is it a conscious retreat for integration? Or is it an escape from uncomfortable situations? Are you seeking inner peace or avoiding growth? Is isolation enriching or impoverishing your experience? The path of the chosen one isn't about becoming a modern-day hermit. It's about learning to stay centered as you navigate the world, about being a beacon of awareness amid the chaos of everyday life. It's about integration, not separation. But there's another aspect of this social dynamic that needs careful attention. When we don't isolate completely, we can fall into the opposite extreme, excessive dependence on external validation. And this is something we need to talk about now, because this constant quest for spiritual approval can be just as limiting as total isolation. Danger 4. Dependency on external validation. It's curious how, even on the spiritual path, where we're supposedly seeking our inner truth, we can become deeply reliant on external validation. Have you ever caught yourself eager to share your mystical experiences with your spiritual teacher? Or perhaps constantly checking if your insights are aligned with the teachings of a particular tradition? Don't worry, you're not alone in this. This pursuit of spiritual validation is particularly deceptive because it masquerades as humility and openness to learning. I'm just seeking guidance, we tell ourselves. But there's a fine line between seeking guidance and outsourcing our spiritual discernment. It's like swapping one dependency for another. Instead of seeking approval through material achievements, now we seek it through spiritual accomplishments. I'll admit it took me a while to recognize my own pattern. I spent years jumping from teacher to teacher, course to course, always looking for that external confirmation that I was on the right path. Each mystical experience, each deep insight, only felt real once someone more experienced validated it. It was as if I didn't trust my own inner compass. The real danger here isn't in seeking guidance. Mentors and teachers play a valuable role on our journey. The danger lies in developing a dependency on that external validation, in not trusting our own direct experience. As chosen ones, we need to cultivate our own discernment, our own connection to inner truth. Some warning signs to watch out for: constant need for approval of your spiritual experiences, difficulty making decisions without consulting guides or oracles, frequently comparing your spiritual progress with that of others, fear of trusting your own intuitions and insights, feeling that your experiences are only valid if recognized by others. The antidote to this dependency? Start by cultivating a closer relationship with your own inner wisdom. Practice trusting your intuitions, even if they initially seem to go against what others say. Allow yourself to explore your own understanding of spiritual truths, even if they differ from traditional interpretations. And speaking of trusting yourself, we now reach a crucial point in our conversation, perhaps the most important of all the dangers we've discussed so far. Because even as we start to develop this inner trust, we can fall into an even subtler trap: spiritual self-deception. And it's about this that we need to talk now, with all the honesty and courage this topic demands. And remember, don't forget to get your missing guide for your next level. Make sure you get access. The link is in the first pinned comment. Hurry up because they're running out. Danger 5. Crucial point: spiritual self-deception. Spiritual self-deception is one of the subtlest and most profound dangers we can encounter on our journey. It hides within the nuances of our growth, disguising itself as advancement when, in reality, we're merely creating an illusion of progress. Think of how many times we feel like we're moving forward, yet are actually trapped in a distorted view of ourselves. This point is crucial because, if we don't confront these illusions, we end up going in circles, missing the chance for genuine, deep evolution. It's painful to admit that sometimes we use spirituality as a form of escape. I've often found myself questioning if I was truly evolving or merely upholding an image of being spiritual and conscious. This comfortable self-image can be a refuge, a place where I'd hide to avoid confronting my own flaws and weaknesses. The truth is, it's frightening to realize that we're deceiving ourselves, and the pride of wanting to seem evolved only makes this harder. But without this honesty, the whole path loses its purpose. To identify clear signs of self-deception, it's essential to examine our motivations deeply and continually. If you feel you've already reached a peak in your journey and there's nothing left to learn, that could be a sign that self-deception is present. Another indication is using spiritual practices to avoid difficult emotions or situations, as if they were a relief instead of tools for true confrontation. Spirituality is not a shield to escape reality. It's a path to face it more fully. Conducting an honest self-assessment requires concrete tools and practices to ensure we're on the right path. An effective practice is meditation with the intention of self-knowledge, where, instead of meditating solely to relax, we use meditation to observe the inner patterns that might be deceiving us. Another tool is reflective writing, where we can record our doubts, challenges, and insights, revisiting them to see if we're truly progressing or merely repeating ourselves. Additionally, seeking a trustworthy mentor or guide can provide an objective perspective on our progress, helping us see what we can't perceive alone. Now that we understand how self-deception can lead us astray, it's time to explore practical ways to protect ourselves against other traps that block our spiritual growth. Danger 6. Spiritual urgency. Spiritual urgency is an overwhelming feeling, common to those who embark on the path of self-discovery. It arises as an unrelenting drive to quickly reach a state of fulfillment, as if there were a goal to be achieved. However, this haste can be treacherous, as it disregards the fact that genuine growth follows its own rhythm. Just as the seasons follow a natural and unchanging cycle, our inner development also requires patience and respect for each phase of transformation, which only fully unfolds when we don't rush it. I've experienced this sense of urgency countless times, longing for immediate answers and visible changes. It was as if I were in a silent competition with myself, striving to become a more evolved version instantly. But, in pursuing this speed, I realized that peace and acceptance slipped away with each step. By trying to enlighten myself quickly, I turned my journey into anxiety, missing the subtler lessons that were there to be lived. Understanding that haste doesn't bring true growth was a challenge, but also an essential revelation. Spiritual evolution resembles the blossoming of a plant. Each stage has its own unique, indispensable value. When we try to accelerate this process, we don't allow experiences to integrate deeply, leading to incomplete lessons and the repetition of old patterns. Only patient growth can root deeply enough to withstand life's challenges. To cope with spiritual urgency, incorporating practices of patience is essential. Meditation on the present moment teaches us to value the now without rushing forward. Practicing daily gratitude also helps us appreciate each stage of our journey, accepting who we are and where we are. In the end, by valuing small progress and integrating each lesson with serenity, we can achieve a more authentic and lasting growth. Danger 7. Spiritual perfectionism. Spiritual perfectionism is a subtle yet often insidious trap that many of us fall into. There is this widespread notion that to become spiritually complete, we must approach a sort of divine ideal, a state of being where serenity is constant, faults are non-existent, and enlightenment is absolute. This ideal, while enticing, imposes a pressure that not only restricts our development but also distances us from our true essence. The obsessive pursuit of perfection actually reveals a deep denial of our own humanity. Understanding and embracing this truth is essential for an authentic and compassionate spiritual journey. Countless times, I found myself captured by the fantasy of this ideal. I felt that any mistake was a symbol of spiritual failure, a distancing from an ideal self that should always be peaceful and immaculate. This self-imposed burden soon became a weight, a strain that obscured my quest for true self-knowledge and peace. Gradually, I realized that true spirituality involves embracing our flaws and weaknesses. It was only then that I could open myself to genuine growth without the need to be an unwavering example. Accepting our humanity is perhaps one of the most crucial steps in overcoming spiritual perfectionism. Genuine spirituality does not demand the eradication of imperfections. On the contrary, it invites us to embrace them as learning opportunities. Compassionate self-assessment, cultivating affirmations of acceptance, and practicing vulnerability allow us to transform rigid expectations into profound acceptance. And thus, spirituality ceases to be an ideal to chase and becomes a practice of real compassion and self-discovery, where every fall or doubt becomes a doorway to new insights. The spiritual journey is challenging, marked by pitfalls like spiritual urgency, perfectionism, and self-deception. Each of these obstacles reveals how we relate to our own growth and invites us to explore our vulnerabilities. These challenges are common and form a natural part of the human experience. When facing them, we often feel pressured to achieve perfection or find immediate answers, which can lead to a sense of inadequacy. However, acknowledging these difficulties creates room for liberation, showing us that true spirituality involves accepting and learning from our flaws. To navigate these challenges, ask yourself questions such as, am I seeking perfection, or am I embracing my humanity? Practices like meditation and gratitude can be valuable tools, helping to maintain focus and allowing moments of reflection on intentions and actions. By seeking communities that encourage healthy growth, we create a foundation to progress with safety and authenticity, building a sustainable spiritual path. As we conclude this moment of reflection, the main benefit becomes clear: the ability to reconnect with your essence and move towards a more authentic spirituality. Each of these discussed challenges not only serves as a warning but also teaches us to embrace our humanity, cultivate patience, and recognize that the journey is just as valuable as the destination. How often do we hold ourselves back from fully living out of fear of failure? From my own journey, I can share that I have often found myself lost in the pursuit of an unattainable ideal. I encountered exhaustion and unrealistic expectations, but these experiences taught me that vulnerability is a bridge to connection and that sharing our struggles brings us closer together. Now, ask yourself, what steps can I take to protect my spiritual journey? To strengthen your path, celebrate each small achievement and learn from your mistakes. And if you're curious to learn more about recognizing the signs of a higher purpose, watch the video asterisk. If you have 3 of these 8 signs, you've been chosen for something greater asterisk and find out if you're one of the chosen. Until the next video.